What up, everyone? This is your girl, Lisa Coulter with Global Fight Talk. I finally got to meet the one person that I always hear about, and that's Erin Toughill. Am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Toughill.
Toughill.
It's okay.
And you know what?
It's okay.
You know where I got Toughill from?
Well, because it's spelled like that too. You know what I mean? People think it is.
But you have this podcast called Talking Tough. So I was like, oh, that's dope.
I know, right? I know, right? I know. It's very rarely. It's once in a while, but they're usually, because it's an Irish last name and it's pronounced Tohill. So it's like my dad was Irish, my mom was Chinese and Sicilian. And it's like, it's a strange, and people, of course, as I'm a fighter and they're like, oh, Toughill. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Like, even the girl this morning, because we had our podcast and she was like, I thought it was Toughill. I'm like, it's okay. It's
okay.
I don't give a shit.
You're a fighter, Toughill.
Yeah, absolutely.
Podcast, Talking Tough. It just rolls. It just goes.
Works.
Yeah. It works. Well, I finally met you in South Carolina, of all places, at a Bare Knuckle event. And I was sitting here trying to figure out, what do we name this podcast? What do we name it? And I was like, you know what? Just two women talking fights, that's what we're going to do. And I met you in South Carolina for the very first time, and man, you are tall, or I'm just really short. So I'm glad we were sitting down when that picture was taken of us, because it just would have been like this.
That was a dope picture too.
Yeah.
I like stuff like that. Those candid ones, when you're just like, people are cruising around.
Yeah, they're not well, my father-in-law took that picture. So yeah, he took a really great,
that's right.
Yeah, he took a really great picture. Erin, you've been in the fight game for the longest time. And you were from MMA to boxing to bare knuckle, of all things. And I can sit here and say which one is probably the one that you think is the hardest, because I've done boxing, I've done kickboxing, I've never done MMA. I have been called to do a bare knuckle fight. I'm like, no, that's not for me. And it's not for everyone.
Yeah.
It's definitely not for me. But let's start with your very last fight. Why bare knuckle? Is that something that was just a challenge for you? Or you're just like, you know what, F it. Let me just do it just to do it.
When I came back to fight, because, I fought since 2019. When was this? 2019? When I made a comeback and I had been retired from boxing for 12 years. I'd been retired from MMA for 8 years. Prior to that, I was a very active competitor in both sports. Before I came back, my record was 10-3-1 in MMA, 7-3, 1-1 in boxing. And
last fight was on May 18th, 2019.
So that was like the first one. And I fought, so just kind of like, I'll try to get it in somewhat fast, but I retired. I had to retire because I destroyed my career. So when I met Rashad, right? And so like King Mo was helping me at that time. I was like ranked number 2 at 145 and I was ranked number 1 at 155. Strike Force was coming into play. I think sometime after that fight or something. I know I got married. I moved to Las Vegas and I was training out there and I got a contract with Strike Force. I was the 5th highest paid athlete, male or female. I still have it in my closets too. But I, a lot of those fights that I had at the end of my career, the several years after, they weren't drug testing. Right. They weren't, or they would just sporadically. But if you were fighting on like Indian land, like WEC used to be at the same place, Pachanga and all this stuff, they don't drug test. And I was addicted to pain medication. I think I had to have been taking it when I was on that fight too. I know I had to be, because I was still I was taking it for like 5 years. I had a very bad injury.
Yeah.
And I was suplexed on my neck. And then in like 2006, I was prescribed it, and then I became a drug addict. And that's like, I destroyed my career. It really like ramped up after like American Gladiators, because I know I was taking it then. And then it just, at one point I was taking like 30 Norco a day, and I lost everything. So like when I was living in Vegas at this time, it was bad. It was really, really bad. That was 2008, the recession, right? People weren't working. They were losing everything. And it was like, when I got this contract, I ended up having to I pulled out of, I don't know how many fights, Lisa, at least 8. You know what I mean? And so people would look at my Wikipedia and they're like, oh, all these fights. I said, because I would have never passed the drug test.
And so that's why you were pulling out, because of the drug, because they started drug testing.
They've always drug tested, right? For steroids and boxing, especially, right? They've always done that. MMA does too. But
coming up, they don't drug test. If you're just coming up, it's just like a little 4-rounder or whatever, or sometimes it could just be random. I know when I fought, I've never been drug tested. Out of the 15 fights I've had, I've only been drug tested once, and it was just like random. And I was like, okay, whatever.
And so what started happening too, it'll depend what commission is involved. You know what I mean? If it's some fucking podunk state, they're not going to be spending all the money. If it's on Indian reservation, they don't test. You know what I mean? So I knew that I could be drug tested. And if you're ranked at the top as well, they can do out of competition testing. They can do whatever they want. So like, I mean, I was tested for anytime you fight for a title, a world title in boxing, or any type of belt, they drug test you, you know. When I fought Maricela, when I came back in 2019 and I whooped her fucking ass.
That's the fight that you lost.
I lost that one. Yeah. I cried. That was a fucking, that was gnarly, because I was robbed, like really robbed.
Yeah.
And that's okay. People know. So, but anyway, and that was an 8-round main event, and it wasn't for a title, and I was drug tested after. So regardless, it's going to depend. California is really stiff, as they should be, you know, Las Vegas, New York, like certain places like that. So, but I wasn't in position to fight anyway. I was really fucked up. So I took one more fight, an MMA fight that I lost on a decision, to a girl that I should have whooped her 6 ways to Sunday. I shouldn't have been fighting. You know, I was on a lot of medication, and it was like, after that, everything just went boom, right? Because I had left Vegas, I left my husband, I was homeless, I lost my car, I lost fucking everything. And that took me several years to recover from that. And then took a couple years off of fighting, and then started training again, because it's good for people like me. And fast forward, you know what I mean? But I'll tell you what's interesting is not a lot of people, if you were at my gym at the time, but when Cyborg, because I know we wanted to talk a bit about her. When this probably was 9 years ago, when I started getting back into training, and I've been clean off like pain medication since the end of, I think, 2011. So like after that last fight I had, whenever it was, sometime it was like, I did another run for like 6 months, and I was like, I got caught, and I was doctor shopping, and the doctor, like, it's a federal offense for this shit. You know what I mean? And she didn't call the police, but I knew I needed help and went that route. And then, but I remember a couple years when I came back into this area, and then I was training again, and I was like, oh, I could do MMA again, right? But it's going to take me some time. I hadn't trained for years. I was like super out of shape, whatever. And I remember this was Dana. He asked me if I wanted to fight Cyborg. And I was like, I can't do that. I go, I want to fucking fight her. I go, Dana, I am still in my 30s. You know what I mean? I'm probably 36, 37, maybe. And I go, give me a fight with somebody else, with anybody else. I go, I'll even fight like Holly Holm. And he goes, no, I don't even know if I'm going to keep the division. She ended up fighting Tanya Evinger. was the fight.
Yeah.
Was that
Oh,
one.
so Tanya took her place.
Because it was
Okay.
here. It was in Anaheim at the pond. Well, what used to be the pond. And so we both live here. And I was like, I mauled over for a couple of days, but I was like, bro, I mean, I was like overweight. There was no way I was going to make 145 on a first try like that, even if I had 3 months.
Yeah.
And I turned it was like, no, it's very, and I probably would have gotten paid very well, but I'm looking at like legacy too. I'm like, I don't want to go out there and I've never been knocked out like her, like flat on the face like that. I've been dropped. I've been dropped 3 times, got back up. I've never, knock on wood, never been knocked out like that. And you don't recover from stuff like that. And that takes your soul. So, Mari, I beat, and then I was like, fuck it. I'm going to keep fighting. Cause I'm not making money on these fights. Like women boxers get paid shit.
Oh yeah, they don't. I mean, MMA, it is a lot better as far as pay.
Oh yeah, I got paid very well in MMA.
Yeah, MMA is a lot better, and I don't understand the difference between MMA and boxing as far as pay grade. I don't know if it's just the old school. Men don't want to see women boxing.
Yeah, it's economics.
They're still doing 2 minutes. They're still doing 2 minutes. They're
That's
still
stupid.
doing 10 rounds for a championship fight versus 3 minutes. So it's still that
agree
old
with that.
school. Yeah, it's still old school boxing type of thing, because there's a lot of women who could probably have more knockouts if they had that extra 1 minute.
Yeah.
But it feels like an amateur, let's just score it, and then 2 minutes.
Yeah, I agree with that. We were talking about like the Shields fight. She could have stopped her. I thought she could have stopped her anyway. But I mean, it would definitely help when we have an extra minute for the round, because you can sit down on your punches more and you can take your time to set stuff up. So, and then, so I lost that fight. And then I legitimately lost to Raquel Miller, who was like, I think 9-0 at the time. She was a Team USA member, and she was good. Yeah. I sparred her before one of my fights too. And I was like, I could fucking hang with this chick. It was not my night. And she dropped me twice. She dropped me twice. I got up both times. And then they paid me pretty well to fight Hannah Rankin. And same thing. If it was a longer fight, it was a little 6-round fight, I think. And I'm always a slow starter anyway. You know what I mean? I take my time, and I'm a long distance fighter. And, probably could have been a draw, because I'm cool with her, but like, she doesn't impress me. You know what I mean? But when you're B-side, you're already fucking 5 rounds down anyway. So that was on a Clarissa Shields card. She was supposed to fight that Habazin. This was in 2018 or some shit. I think I fought 3 times, but so I lost that one on a decision, and I could have beaten her. She's like very like what I think to be like very rudimentary, very low level, just kind of like, she's tough, like they all are. And then I fought my first bare knuckle fight, because I wasn't going to do boxing anymore, because it's too hard to be B-side. And at this age, it's like, there's no point. I'm doing it for fun.
Give me one. So do you think, I mean, you, Erin Toughill, with your notoriety, with everything that you have, like all the fights, you still think you would be B-side because you haven't fought in forever and your age? Is that what you're saying? Well,
I was. You know what I mean?
Even when you were active.
Okay. There was maybe a couple times in the beginning of my career where it was local and I was you know what I mean? Like I fought at the Quiet Cannon a couple times. And so I was like, but this was, I didn't even, you have to really know boxing to even know what A and B side is. You think I knew what that was when I was fucking 21? I didn't know. I just was always, I want to fight. I want to fight. I want to fight. And so when we're flying to other places and going, you're the B side. You're the fucking B side.
You're not fighting in your hometown. You're always going to be B side.
You're always going to be B side.
Even when you're fighting in your hometown, you are the
absolutely B-side. You know what I mean? It's like, it's crazy. And boxing it's a very harsh business. It's different. It's a different beast. It's nothing like MMA and even bare knuckle. Like bare knuckle is like mild compared to, you know what I mean? MMA I can do standing on my head with the business. And then you see like these people that, you know, because I've had a lot of contracts, I've read contracts, I'm a smart person, you know, I educate myself, I do my due diligence. And, you know, back when you and I were, when all this technology wasn't here, it was like you actually had to do research. You know what I mean? You can't just fucking rely on shit. So I think our generation is a lot smarter, a lot more self-awareness, you know, with more common sense. I mean, I can barely like get conversations with the 20 somethings. I'm like, what the fuck are you saying? But yeah, I mean, I came back for fun, you know, and that was the difference when I made my return. It was like, I used to be very concerned with what people thought of me, right? Like, oh my God, what are people going to think? Because when you're up there, that's your ego. Like I have a big ego, trust me, but like, I'm not even that same person anymore. You know what I mean? I just really don't give a fuck. And so when you come back and you're in this sport, you can't be concerned with that, you know, later on in your career. So, you know, I had the bare knuckle.
Let me ask you this before we go to the bare knuckle, because I do want to get into the bare knuckle, because I do have a question that I really want to ask. And I think we talked about it that night that I met you. But let me ask you about this. Laila Ali. I mean, you fought her.
Yeah.
How did that even come about? And
well, because
talk to me about being in the ring, because when people think of Laila Ali, they think of automatically her father.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes it can discourage a fighter going into a fight with someone like Laila because of her father. Did you think about that going into that fight with her? Like, man, I'm fighting the legend's daughter, or you just thought this is just Laila Ali? She's just a boxer, and I mean, what did you think about her skills?
She's a great boxer, you know what I mean? And like, if the Erin me, even with the knowledge that I have now, and that's like, I don't even would call that in my prime. 2005, I mean, I'm 28. I could be like just getting to my prime. I don't even know if she realized the significance of how important that fight was for women. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The WBC just let women fight for the prestigious green belt. So Jackie Nava, who's a legend, was the first woman to fight for it. We were the second women to fight for the WBC title, super middleweight. And then there was another a women's title in there too. But it didn't even occur to me how big that was until later. You know what I mean? And I knew Mike Tyson was on the card. I was like, oh, fuck, man. You know, and here I am. I didn't get the respect even though I did both sports. And I mean, wow, I had an MMA fight fucking 1 year before boxing. So now I'm a fucking MMA fighter, right? It was like, because I did both. So in the commentary, they're like, you could tell I just remember this. You can tell she's an MMA. We didn't get respect. And now we get respect. You know what I mean? But back then there wasn't fucking, and it was like her and I really didn't like each other. It was fucking real. And
what was that?
We just talked shit. I just didn't fucking like her. And I'm cool with her now. We're the same age. We're like, whatever. But she's like me. She'll go to 0 to 60. And, you know, but she, when I had that fight with Mari, she congratulated me. And she was like, you won that fight. She goes, that's really cool to see you fight. You know, like we made history together, and it was an honor to fight her. Yeah. And, you know, in your old age, you realize the importance, the significance of some of these things. So, you know, we all talked shit to each other back then. And then in, you know, early 2000s, AOL, right? Like, bro, everything it would take, you know, like Sue Fox, right? With WBN or W whatever. She has the Women's Boxing Network, right? She's great. She'd been around for, I don't know, 30 something years. And we'd be doing an interview and I'd be like, yeah, I want to fight Laila. You know what I mean? And then a week later, interview would come out with Laila talking shit on me. And then I'd fucking talk shit, right? Because we're going to compete. And I've always been that way. I'm a heel. You know what I mean? Like, I'm a mean motherfucker. I'm respectful until you're not. I'm not the person who's just going to like do that because I'm not, I talk good shit, but I mean, I don't need to make a fucking spectacle, you know, at the weigh-ins and pushing people and all that shit because it's fake.
I'm thinking about eating and drinking some water. You want to have an argument? I'm like, I just want to eat. I need to rehydrate.
Yeah, everybody, whatever their thing is, you know, and we're the best of the best. This is at the elite level. You know what I mean? We're fighting 18,000 people. We're in that arena. It was on Showtime pay-per-view. You know, it's the highest you can fucking get. You know what I mean? And the stakes are very high. How many people? Not very many people are going to be able to say they fought a co-main event on Showtime for fucking 2 world titles. You know, being a world title challenger is pretty rad. So, and she broke my nose in the first round. But if you watch that fight, like it took me years to watch it. I did quite well with her. But then I was like, I turned my face. You know what I mean? I don't know what would have happened, but for an MMA fighter that came in with a 6-1-1 record, and she was 21-0 or 23-0, like, you know, I'm very proud of that. So, but an honor, yeah.
Let me ask you this: the Erin Toughill now.
Mm-hmm.
If you were able to talk to the Erin Toughill starting out, what advice would you give her, especially in the fight game?
Yeah.
I mean, you're older now. I see that you're training other people. You know, I see all that, and I'm sure you've given, you know, people that are coming up or the people that you train some knowledge. What would you say to your young self? What you know now?
You know, I think first and foremost is, you know, I was always really lucky with some things. Some things I was not, you know what I mean? I had some bad coaches. I had some problems too. Just, it's hard to say because things are so different, but you know, you just make sure that you find a place where you feel protected. You know what I mean? Because, you know, I won't get into a lot of different stuff. You know, I was never like, I don't know what to say, but there's a lot of course, sexual harassment in women's fighting. You know what I mean? It's not, I mean, and I saw it and I experienced it. And I had guys that would try to knock me out in the gym, boxing, not MMA. Most guys were pretty cool. You know what I mean? But it's like machiste and what is she doing here? And so just make sure you find a good gym, make sure and follow your intuition. You know what I mean? Because if something doesn't feel right, there's a reason for that. And anytime I ever got in trouble in anything in life, it was because I ignored that feeling. You know what I mean? That feeling in my gut. And I don't know. And I think my career, it's like it just turned out the way it was supposed to. Like when I started fighting, I didn't do it because I never thought I would have a career. It was like I was fucking crazy and I liked going to Japan and I was fighting and I did some really cool shit. But I didn't know that I was like in the middle of creating something, right? And being one of the first women to do, and there was women a few years before me, but there wasn't social media. You weren't getting modeling contracts and fucking on TV. It was like, if you were doing this and boxing and all of it, it was because you were about it, you know?
Right. Exactly. And a lot of people don't know about the old school boxers back then because we didn't have social media, like Lucia Riker.
Right.
Oh my God.
I know.
I
Wasn't
love
she great?
Lucia Riker. You know,
I love
from
her
when she was
too.
doing Muay Thai and
I know.
You know, training with Freddie Roach. Man, that is someone I would have loved to, you know, have met back then. But yeah, Lucia Riker's, you know, when I ask someone like now, I'm like, hey, you know, Lucia Riker, like, no. And I'll start naming all these other old school boxers that they don't know now.
That's sad.
Like Kathy, I think her name is Kathy Long. Is it Kathy Long? Okay. Man.
She was rad. Her kickboxing, because they're older than us, right? They're like a handful of years older than us. So I grew up like, you know, when USA Tuesday night fights, right? And they had that on USA Network, and then they did boxing. I remember her, like Bonnie Canino. And she fought, I'll never forget, because they used to play those kickboxing like on USA 2 or like, you know, Channel 3 or some shit. But, and then she fought like Bridget Riley, you know what I mean? And these were like, that's what I saw. And I was like, oh, I can do this. You know, they inspired me. Lucia absolutely inspired me. You know,
but definitely Lucia Riker was one of my favorite fighters of all time.
Yeah, she's great.
And Wolf. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, she lives in Austin, Texas. So I know her through the fight game because she's not too far from me. You know, she's like 3 hours away. So I would always see her in the fight game. But man, I've interviewed, you know, Lucia. I try to get the Lucia and not Lucia and Wolf and Laila Ali interviewed together because they had some bad beat. And Layla was cool with it. She said, yeah, I'll do it. And somehow, for some reason,
it didn't. I think they both remember
cool
because
now.
they inducted both of them right into like the box for the women's boxing.
Yeah.
And that was really cool to see because, you know, Layla didn't want to fight her, right? I mean, I'm sure she said she did, but like that's a dangerous fight. And it's and I never fought Ann Wolf, but I signed to fight her. So this was, you can ask her about this too. This is a 2002 or 3 or something, but it was on an all women's card. Mia St. John was on it. Eliza Olsen fought Sunshine Fedeker. Me and Ann Wolf were doing a 6-rounder. So I just remember when I went with my coach, I was like, fuck it, I'll fight her. And we went down there. It was like in Coshada, the Coshada Pavilion or some shit. And literally I'm in the back warming up, and 20 minutes before the fight, the commission comes back and they say she can't fight. Some problem with the medicals. We're like, okay, what? You know, and we never rematched. But yeah, I'll never forget that. I got a picture with her somewhere, like all of the girls, but I still talk to Eliza. I mean, that's the point. That's the type of fighter I am. You know what I mean? Even when I come back from fucking after 12 years, everybody that I fought, those 3 boxing, former world champions, future world champion, or, you know.
Yeah.
Like I fight the best, you know, losing is not, if you're losing to the best, it's okay. You know?
I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I think right now, I think people have that Mayweather mentality. I don't ever want to lose. And in boxing, especially in boxing, because MMA, you can have 20 losses, 15 losses, and still be ranked high. But if you have 2 losses, it's over for you.
It's
like they
over.
don't want, you are now B-side, and anything over 5 fights, you're a journeyman.
Yes,
I mean,
it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. You're just coming in to lose. So anything, if you have more than 5 fights, you're just either a journeyman or they're bringing you in so you can lose, so you can build someone else up.
Yeah.
And that's the saddest thing about it. But I have seen what they call the journeyman, you know, people who have tons of fight knock out the up and coming prospects.
Absolutely. That happens too. That happens too.
Erin, if you were to build a fighter, like if you were to say, hey, if I had so-and-so's power, so-and-so's footwork to create a fighter, who would it be? Like me, you know, I would love to have Lucia Riker's boxing knowledge, her skills. I would love to have Laila Ali's, you know, movements, her, you know, just her being just so, you know, she just looks flawless in the ring. I would love to have Wolf's power.
Yeah, you know, sure.
Or Clarissa Shields, I would love to have her confidence. What would you, and it could be old school, new school, if you were to build Erin with all these fighters, women, the greats, who would you want to be Erin? What fighter would you want? You know, a certain.
Well, no one can do that. You know what I mean? It's like if I'm creating something not like based on me, you know what I mean? If there's things that I like, if I was going to take a fighter under my wing, what I can say is no matter even all those women, like the fighters, like what the irony when boxing is that I've learned the most at the end of my career. Like I've learned more in the last 4 years with Buddy McGirt than I have in fucking 10 years, right? Even though I'm a student of the sport,
Who are you
study it.
Who'd you say?
He's my mentor, Buddy McGirt.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. So he's mentors me under my mitt work for the last 4 years. When he's in town, because he's back in Vero right now and he's training a bunch of guys. But, I try to see him. I talked to him. I just talked to him the other day. We shoot the shit. He's a really important person in my life. And, I try to go up to LA like once a week to the gym to check him out and see what he's doing with the guys. And I watched him train Johnny Beck, Alima Hunali for his last fight, who's a fucking badass. So, if I'm talking with like women, you know what I mean? Because there's all that can happen.
This is a fantasy fighter. Like if I wanted to fight again, I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to take a fight, I want, You know
what? Let me just say, I would keep everything with me, right? But if I was going to, if I could have a career again, I would take 10 years off, right? Yeah. Because it's a wrap right now. You know what I mean? I do it for fun. But if I'm mid 30s, if you're a man and you're 35, you're fucking washed up, right? It's like, that's how it is. Okay. But women can have a longer career. I would take everything, all of my skill set that I have now is better now than at any other time in my life.
They say that you get better after you retire. Like all of a sudden, because you become a coach.
Yeah. And sometimes, you know what I mean? But I study, I'm a student of the sport and like, it really is my life. You know what I mean? I dream the shit. So it's like, I'm always thinking, imagining, looking. I look at shit all day, as boxing. So, just for just straight boxing, I keep everything about myself. But younger, because I'm still very athletic, but you don't lose power as you get older. It's funny because I have like knockouts in my MMA. I've punched girls hard enough to knock them out in boxing. I don't have any knockouts in boxing, which is funny, even though I've like stunned girls and I fucking almost dropped people because I was doing both sports and we're not taught to sit down on our punches.
Right.
If I was only doing boxing, I'm sure my career would have been much different. But, my ring IQ is the highest it's ever been. So that's really, I would take like Erin, the young Erin is probably more aggressive. Also, like later on in life, I fight like a little, not as, you know what I mean? I'm just more chill, like fucking point of fighting is not to get hit. I'm cool. Let me just fucking outwork you. Let me make you look stupid. Right. So, I would just take that. But again, younger, going into my prime, and then like the ring IQ that I have now, that's not something that you'll get in your 20s. It's something that is like over a 20-year period that you accumulate. So I think that.
Erin, so I wanted to say the best for last.
Yeah.
The best. The question that we've talked about this, and you were doing an interview with my husband along with Don, and I don't know if it was you or Don that asked this question. What fight would you love to, who would you love to fight now? And you said you wanted to fight Cris Cyborg. And you guys were going to fight,
years
somewhere
ago,
back then,
Yeah.
And so I think Dawn tweeted that, and she responded, and she said verbatim, because I'm reading it.
Yeah.
Because he said,
Ray, her husband, responds.
Oh, okay.
It's definitely Ray.
She does nothing for me in boxing or MMA anymore. Nice enough lady, though. So let me ask you this. She said you don't do nothing for her now in boxing. She's just now beginning in her career. But who is she fighting in boxing right now that gives her, what she says you don't do anything for her?
Yeah. Well, she knows I sparred with her many years ago. Yeah. You know what I mean? We know each other. I've known each other. Look, to tell you the truth, it's like, I really didn't even have a problem with her. Why I started having a problem with her, I was always cool to her. I was always respectful to her. We were always cool to each other. Yes, we were going to fight when we were both signed to Strike Force. That's a fact. I was signed. She was signed. We would have fought. I'm big on respect. I'm big on loyalty. Like, I live and fucking die by that shit. Okay. So like MMA, like our area in Southern California, there's many, many, many places to train. Okay. There's many, many places. When I was making my comeback for everything, because this is now in 2018, when I started coming back to more MMA training, I was at Body Shop. And I'm still close with all those guys, which is the Body Shop's in Lakewood, right? And it's where Antonio McKee, his son is AJ McKee, who's like the Bellator little goat, right? We got a lot of good guys out of there. It's a tough fucking team, right? It's a good team. It's a hardcore team. And fucking, they know I train there. And after my last fight, I don't think I trained there for the one that I had a year ago, but I think the one that was before that, I was still training there. And then I just took a little break, right? I took like a several month break because I just needed a rest. Who's fucking going in there? That dumb bitch, right? And she's in there and like posting pictures. And I was like, what a fucking clown. She knows I go to that gym. The husband knows I go to that gym. Now, I never even addressed it with Coach. We ended up talking about it later, but he was like, why didn't you say anything? I said, because I'm not trying to take money from you. And plus, you're like, I'm not doing MMA. You know what I mean? I come in there to help with the guys with technique and sparring and drilling and stuff. And so all the guys, like, they start seeing that I'm not going in there. It's like, I don't need a confrontation. And I told a handful of the guys and they go, that makes sense. We were like, why is Cyborg here? Because they you know what I mean? She's a whatever. But, you know, I know her. I know her mentality. And it's a fucking weirdo thing to do. She's a fucking weirdo, you know? Yeah. And it's like, she knows that. Ray knows that I don't respect that shit. There's a million gyms you could go to and you fucking go there. Right. And so Coach was like, why didn't you ever say anything? I said, because it's okay. They know, you know what I mean? So like, after when you do stuff like that, you're shady. And I think you're a fucking clown. And so I don't like her, you know what I mean? And is it personal? Yeah, it's personal because you're trying to invade my space. And it's very clear. Mari Cornejo did the same thing. She's a fucking weirdo, right? When I was with Buddy, during COVID, she snuck up there and she DM'd one of the fighters, right? Instead of just asking me like, hey, I see you're training up there. Can I come in there? Sure, I would have been cool. She DMs one of the guys so she can start, you know, doing what she does because she's a Khalil clout chaser. And she just shows up. The fighter goes, and I won't say his name, but he goes, there's a girl your size. I had already fought her, right? This is like a year later. Like, and he goes, there's a girl your size coming in here. And he goes, Maricela. And I go, what the fuck? It's weirdos do stuff like that, right? They stalk you and they go to the gym that you're at, you know? And so I know this game very well. I know if a woman does that, I think when men do that, it's more like a big dick move, right? Like a fucking macho move, like make me move. Yeah. Women operate differently. And that's like a jealousy, like a stalker thing. It just is. I would never think to do that to either one of them, to go to their gym and start training. So I took I'm still cool with all the guys, but I'm like, all right, that's fine. So like Cyborg, look who her first fight doesn't even count on BoxRec because the fucking girl that she fought was under a 60-day suspension for getting knocked out, right? I mean, you do your research. The girl lit her up. I watched some of the highlights. I didn't watch the fight, but it was funny. The Cyborg still swings like this. The girl fought as low as 126 in her career, okay? And she's like tatting her up. And then Cyborg fights some fucking MMA fighter, which same thing. I didn't watch that. No one... I know she doesn't like to hear this, but no one cares about her boxing career. And people lost a lot of respect for her after Nunes knocked her the fuck out and she didn't go and rematch her.
Right.
You know, if I could go back to fight somebody, like you were talking about that fighter that I want to like me, but 10 years ago, both my IQ, I would love to go back and I would fight Layla. You know what I mean? That's a fight that I would love to. The cards were different. It's not, you know what I mean? But like somebody like Cyborg, like I've always wanted to rematch anybody that I've lost to, right? Why not? You know, I mean, that's why I love like Holly Holm. You know, she's gotten knocked out really bad a couple times and she's come back. She's like I really like her. She's a very favorite fighter of mine. But Cyborg's not going to have a boxing career. You know, she thinks she's going to what? She's like almost 40 and she's going to be, I mean, I feel like she's probably younger than that.
Yeah, but when I read her comment where you said her husband dead,
yeah,
I immediately thought about those fights that she had in boxing. I was like, Erin, yeah, it didn't make sense.
It didn't make
and
sense.
So Don replied,
because he sent me that too, right?
Yeah, he is then should be a nice little tune-up, and he had nothing to lose, and there was no response after that.
Of course, yeah.
So
she knows she could beat me in MMA. Okay. I'm too old to fucking do MMA. I can't get thrown on my head and do all this wrestling and stuff. In the day, I could have beaten her. In boxing, I can beat her. Flat out.
She was watching this because obviously I'm gonna tag her in this video.
Yeah, you can, of course. Lisa, I say nothing that I don't want out into the world. You see what I write and how I speak. I'm very transparent. I could post this clip and tag her. I ended up blocking her a while ago because when we were still cool and we used to follow each other, I helped her with her camp, her women's camp a couple times. And I did like striking and stuff. I'm going to say, I think she is easily manipulated. That's very clear to me. You know what I mean? Do I think Ray is I don't need to say anything about Ray. Everybody knows that's him. If you know him, you know him. Let's just say that. Cyborg, I think it's shady and shitty that you went up to my gym and it was my gym. And I mean, even like the guys, because they would tell me and they were like, oh, she gets so mad because we beat her up. She can't take it. You know what I mean? Like I get my licks in there too. So from the last time what I had heard, because she's not like my daily, like I'm interested, but I did ask a couple times. I was like, what days does she go in? You know, like most days, right? And then they said she stopped going to the group classes because she couldn't handle it anymore. Because she's, you know, she has a fucking meltdown. So now she just trains like solo, you know, big. She's got a real big ego, like a one that has no humility. You know what I mean? Right. She can't take being anywhere less than wherever her little fucking brain thinks that she's at, you know? And I would whoop her ass in boxing. If I'm old and I suck, come beat me up.
But there you have it. And that's how we're going to end this interview, Erin. It was a pleasure to speak with you. I could sit here and just talk about women's boxing.
Talk a lot.
No, we get to sit here and talk about fights. Yeah, I'm just like you. I could just talk about it.
Yes.
But I you know, that I would love to see that fight.
People would make it. Somebody would make that fight. You know what I mean? And the thing is like you look at all the people now who are, you know, I mean, I'm 10 years older than her, and I look younger than her. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, come on, don't get it twisted. I'll be 46 next week, but it's like, my mind is young. I'm healthy. I haven't taken an incredible amount of damage in my career. Thank God, you know, so I have to take the right fights, but she's somebody that I'm not going to get in a firefight with her. I think you can catch her at opportune times because she cannot box. She's a great MMA fighter. So I would never take that away from her. She's an incredible champion. She had all those belts, you know, I guess she has one now. I don't know. I don't watch her fight, but you know, she did a lot for women's MMA. I have respect for her is what she did. And, but you know, you get these MMA fighters, they think boxing is easy. This shit is not easy. Just because you're good at that doesn't mean you're going to be good in this. So again, come kick my ass. I suck so bad. should be light work for you.
What shout outs do you have? What are the last words that you want to say?
Oh, you know, I'm not fighting anymore or anything, but
Right,
you know,
right.
I like,
Yeah.
let me give my social. Okay. So, it's at Erin, or it's at Coach, Coach, Toughill, my last name. It's one word. I'm on Facebook. I don't really do too much on there. I don't know. I'd like to thank BYB, my guys at BYB, for giving me this opportunity to work with them. That's how I'm meeting you, and I get to reconnect with your husband again. Like, it's cool, you know. Bare Knuckle has been a really incredible experience, and the community is really, it's quite different than the other two. But I like getting to reconnect with people, and I like traveling and being involved. So follow BYB Extreme, follow me, and you know, show your girl some love, support.
There you have it, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you're not following us, follow on all of our social media sites: Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, even TikTok at Global Fight Talk. And there you have it. Until next time.
Thank you.